Well, we're right at 10 o'clock now, so we'll jump in because quite a few more people have just joined us there. So welcome. This is the Spaces Places webinar, Where to Be and Not to Be.
Not to be yet.
I'm Zoe Ellis-Moore.
And I'm Hilary Afton.
And we are Spaces Places. The team are behind the scenes working away as well. So there's Lister and Claire around as well answering questions. So people are just coming online, trickling through. But what we wanted to start with, our first point really, was just to review and have some interaction initially. So asking the question, how would you describe 2026 so far? So if you're into accountancy and doing those 6+6 sort of accountancy reviews, looking at budgets, Claire's just putting it into a poll at the moment for you to correspond there with. Is it best year yet? Is it steady as expected? C, tougher than planned, or D, difficult? So just getting the live polls in. Hilary, how are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing well. People are starting to get into the poll, which is great. But yeah, if you can't find it, it's on the right hand side and you can just click on the one that gives your vote. So thank you for those who've started. Seeing that some of you are saying it's tougher than planned so far, steady as expected. So it'd be really lovely as those polls come in just to see how we're getting on.
Thank you for voting there. As people coming in, please do vote with the poll on that. And yeah, I think the overall winner at the moment is very much tougher than expected. I think that is really interesting. And we would actually agree. I think it's good to say actually we're all agreeing there on that side. So why we're saying that is because we've been tracking the market, as you know, working out who's opening, who's closing, and we have seen numerous closes quite recently. So this is a really important topic for us, where to be and not to be. We're hugely passionate because we know how much work it takes to run a successful workspace, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the personal money that goes into different ventures. So we've started to see that Mill House in Woburn has closed, Roomy 2 as well in Chichester has closed. Literally, Mill House closed last week, and Roomy 2 is just the 1st of May that they closed. It's like at the beginning of the year. We had Home Office closing with Tring as well. These are the smaller independent spaces under sort of 8,000 square feet that have closed. We have done previous sessions on business models, and we can, send that across to you as well. That's a previous webinar that we've done. So we're going to focus less on the business models, more on just the locational side, both physically, and then we'll go into much more what's happening virtually with how businesses find you and where to be as well. So we've got those two sections coming up on that side. But what we're finding generally in the market, and agreeing with you all, that it's been a much tougher year than expected, to be quite honest. We've found that the data from the FSB from last year, business confidence for small businesses is really low generally. That was the statistics there. Also, rubber desk data on London saying the central London supply is down. And then we've got Reflexa that's keeping us updated. So that's the Flexible Space Association. Also, business rates, there's potential sort of hit there looming as well. So this is sort of the context that we're in a tough market. So first of all, pat yourself on the back that if you're growing, expanding, keeping evolving and still in the market, well done, because it is tough across the board. We've been helping lots of clients there, and so recognize that on that side. What we found really with this, where we said it's about redistributing some of the demand, it's not decreasing, it's just changing. We're seeing providers that have also set up, so the ones that I've said about, first of all, they set up 5 years ago, they have given it a good shot 5 years in. These are other smaller independent co-working spaces that are 5 years in and really evolving and finding the new market demand. So we've got the Bond Store here in Southampton. So this is a slightly changed with their proposition. They're about a HQ that you can hire by the day or regularly contract per month that you bring your teams together. So this is really evolving with the market and what people need. Also, we've got here Wellness House. This is in Farnham, originally a co-working space. And they've gone much more from psychotherapists to counsellors, being able to respond to the need that's changing of good spaces, well located, that people can come in for appointments. So we're really seeing the market quite significantly change. So that's the quick intro. And I know we're now moving to 25 minutes in. So the remaining 25 minutes, what we're going to do is Hillary's going to go through physical footprint, and then I'm going to go through the online footprint side. But do, like I said, use the chat to ask comments and questions. We will be going at rapid pace. It's going to be recorded. You will get a copy of the recording. We'll try and answer as many questions at the end. If we don't, reach out to us. We're hopefully us well. Most of the team, people coming online at the moment. So feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. So without further ado, I'll pass on to Hillary here.
Well, thank you so much. So that's super to have so many of you online. Thank you for joining us this morning. So with this big question of where to be and not to be in your physical footprint, where you're located, really, I still believe is one of the single determinant of who you can attract into your buildings. And the good news is that the tools are developing daily to help you make those decisions really well, really strategically, and those decisions can now be really supported by data, which is fantastic. So let's start with how operators have been approaching their location planning strategy over the years. So there's broadly two ways in which providers have been deciding on where to be or where not to be. Initially, I guess it's that reactive approach. It's been the default for a very long time. It's you find a building, you follow the development pipeline, you watch what the competitors are doing, you're responding to broker calls, to agents, you might take secondary stock at a slightly lower rent, and you might make a reasonable guess at the local demand. And this is not reckless at all. This is what was perceived to be quite rational. Markets were less transparent then, and data was harder to access. And you kind of followed the pipeline. That was a really good proxy, sort of the ice cream sellers on the beach approach for following demand. But the calculation has changed, and the data available to us means so much more. We can be more than reactive. We can be proactive. And I believe you can have a competitive advantage by being much more proactive to making your location planning decisions. So as you make a more proactive decision, you might be leading with open data signals. You might be mapping where companies are forming. You might track spin-outs and seed rounds. You probably are targeting undersupplied catchments. You're building for a specific occupier profile. And with this, you can find better, more adaptable spaces, which perhaps you can have stronger negotiating terms on, and you could fill your spaces faster. So the question I'm going to help you answer today is, how do you move from being reactive in your strategy to more proactive? And I'm just popping up InQHive here, who clearly are proactive. They have looked at those key drivers which have identified some sites for them, and they are shouting out to landlords and developers in a very proactive approach. Okay, so who is actually taking space, and how can this help us make decisions? So the headline from our research is there are really three clear tranches or tiers here. So you've got those established volume occupiers, you've got those high growth emerging occupiers, and then you've got more and more of non-traditional serviced office occupiers you perhaps would have seen on a retail parade, a neighbourhood parade, or on a high street, or even in a shopping centre. But what we've seen is that there's been a redistribution of demand. So let's look at those distinct groups now. Okay, let's look at your bedrock. Your bedrock for business centres, for serviced offices over the years has been technology, digital, professional services, financial services, startups and scale-ups. And these occupiers are large, relatively stable, and they still are the dominant force for our flex market that we're all in. And I don't believe they are going anywhere, but they are evolving. So the product requirements, as you know from your occupiers, they're demanding different things. Perhaps they're shifting to a more enterprise grade specification. They want scalable suites. They perhaps want a more of a managed product. So you're being able to give them an environment where they have genuine control over that space, but just without the long lease. And the occupiers in this group are increasingly wanting something that perhaps looks like a traditional office, but just not committed to sign that 10-year lease. So primary locations, strong secondary cities. Here's the example from Bruntwood with the Plaza in Liverpool. Great, those lettings that have done for serviced office are actually the bedrock, their professional services, their healthcare, and their financial services, which, as you say, is one of the established volumes. But as we go now, we're just going to think about some of the more different types of occupiers taking space. And yes, AI, high growth emerging occupiers. And just on a bit of a geography field trip now, we're going to take you to Leamington Spa, also known as Silicon Spa. And why is Silicon Spa where it is? Why is there a gaming and tech cluster around Leamington Spa? Well, it's built proximately. It was built because of its proximity, obviously, to Warwick, to Coventry, and to Birmingham universities. And what has sustained that as a gaming and tech cluster is a spin-out effect. As studios grew and businesses grew up from those universities and from that experience, experienced developers have left and found new companies. And they've kind of created this ecosystem in this wonderful Regency town. And it's not a single anchor that's got Leamington Spa to be a Silicon Spa, but it's more than that. It's other factors that have produced it as such a cluster. We can't do this talk without talking about the Oxford, Cambridge, London corridor, or the ARC, as people, it's all over the press, and it's extremely exciting of what's going on within that space. AI native firms, frontier R&D, everything is developing at place. Science parks, science techs, and all of it is not all of it, but some of it is quite high spec and a lot of international interest there. And this is establishing and intensifying. And our friends at CBRE have done this wonderful map, top right. I'm a geographer, we had to have a map. And this shows you where all the AI clusters have been forming in London over the past 12 months. Okay, so now just let's think maybe about the non-traditional serviced occupiers, and I'm sure many of you have these providers in your space. And it generally surprises us the most, I think. It's not just in suburban and regional locations, across all locations that we are seeing wellness and mental health practitioners, SEN, neurodiversity consultants, education, skills providers, private healthcare, sustainability consultancies, e-commerce sellers, content creators. These are fundamentally redefining who uses the serviced office. And actually, the commercial case is really compelling. This group needs professional space, maybe need part-time access, they need a credible business address. And often they don't need a 5-day desk, but they do need a well-managed, accessible, well-located professional environment. And once they find that tends to work. So let's just have a look at some examples as we go around the country, seeing where this is happening. So Sustainable Ventures, that's in County Hall. This is an ecosystem of sustainable SEM and businesses coming together. E-commerce sellers are everywhere, absolutely everywhere across the country. You can probably pick out those. This is just an example in the WOW workspace where people are showcasing the WOW workspace, their clothing brand, education and skills, from language schools to AI training to tutoring and independent sort of education. You can see these education skills in workshops, in traditional serviced offices everywhere, purely because of location. But that is a real trend that we're seeing. Also, really excitingly, we do know the High Street is seeing a real surge in reformer Pilates studios, and the serviced offices are also providing that. So many serviced offices are now without desks. They're provided as studios. They've got great accessibility and locations here in Tradestar space. You can see the Pilates being promoted. Private healthcare, discrete healthcare in places that are well located, but also able to offer that professional service, for example, like the private kids dentist here in Hammersmith. And also those emerging categories as very specific healthcare needs, very special mental health support. We can see in the unit management, Battersea Business Centre here, the speech and language support taking a really interesting, well-located space, which you perhaps wouldn't also associate with that kind of provision. So when we support you in making the decisions and not overwhelming you with all this data, I just wanted to give you a checklist really of what you need to be thinking about. Is there genuine evidence of demand from those sort of categories 1, 2, 3 that I've outlined? Can you make that decision with genuine confidence rather than just an informed, optimistic excitement? Does the sector that you want to meet, does that serve the talent pool? Is there talent available to meet your occupiers' needs? Is there any landlord motivation to support you in delivering that product? Is this actually viable? Can you deliver those rents that you require? Can you get that desired level of occupancy? Is there a genuine product gap? What is the competition like? Are you just the fourth provider in that market doing a very similar product? What is the strategic fit? We've talked about being proactive and proactive. Is this the right place, the right posture, given your risk tolerance perhaps right now? And if any one of those questions you paused on, you need to consider twice. If you have 3 or 4 pauses, then perhaps that's a situation where you need to walk away. I just wanted to just really close and talk to you about a real example that I've just done recently, working with a regional operator who's got a really strong existing portfolio, but they needed more than instinct to give them the evidence to expand. We triangulated data, we pulled on various resources that are now available to us on business formation data, government investment area, clusters, all of those sort of key market supply and demand factors that make up what makes a successful market. And from that, we identified acquisition targets, priority markets, and clear routes to market to give a really strong and straightforward approach that can give a board, a lender, or even an investor a real confidence that you know exactly where you're going and why. So just drawing on some of the research that Zoe and I've been doing, it's all about the customer and where are those customers, why they matter, how can we leverage insights. You can dive on to our website even with your phone and with your laptop and find these reports and give you some real insight into how we've been exploring these market dynamics. But now let's talk about the online footprint, and I'll pass you back to Zoe.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Hilary. I do love it, that just bringing practical examples to life. So we're all about trying to give you as many golden nuggets and takeaways as well. So we will make the video available afterwards, so you can skip back, because I know we're going at rapid pace there. Do feel free, like I say, put anything in the chat there. Claire's just sent through links with the reports as well. But as we mentioned right at the beginning, when we were just all coming online, the buzzword is AI at the moment, and we're seeing it really change and transform just how we do business generally, but also how businesses and occupiers are searching at the moment. So hence we wanted to cover the online footprint now. What you can see here is, this is quite old data in some ways from September, but ChatGPT just coming from nowhere, really rapid growth there. We've also, though, must mention Claude is coming up in the rankings, but with tracking and stuff, because it's much more apps and desktop as well, harder. But LLMs are so important. So these are the Claudes, the Geminis, the Perplexities, the Glocks of this world. And what I mean by LLMs is large language models. So we're going to go into a bit more on the question of what does this mean about as a business being found. Significant structural changes are happening. We're really seeing now a shift. What I would say is we've got, very much we're aware sort of the world of sort of Google in the traditional search. And very much this has all been around much more keywords. It's been very much recommendations coming as a list of results, sort of 10 blue links to click through, manual comparisons. But what the evolution now and what is these LLMs are enabling is much more a natural conversation, natural language, creating customized results, it's structuring data from trusted sources. And we're excited even in the next stage where we're going to see much more the move to agentic. But where we are at the moment is really these LLMs, and we'll now come into why this is important, because these are great stats, lovely stats. We love data, as you know, and stuff. We're always about data. But what is totally, with all of this data that's increasing here that you're seeing, is I like to visualize things, so I'll come into this data sources. We're seeing marketing is turning from a funnel, I'd say, much more into a tunnel. What's happening with those data and the research that's been done, much more, I would say, on the consumer side, business to consumer market, and moving fast, is businesses or individuals are typing in inquiries into LLM. They're trusting the data and recommendations, and they're acting and converting much quicker. So I think that is the key takeaway from all the data highlights of what's been happening there. So I suppose this is great to know, but what and how can you sort of understand this for your advantage and what is actually powering these AI recommendations. How do you now, instead of being sort of one of 10, be the preferred sort of choice for certain recommendations? So I'll move on to another visual, because we do like visuals. This is an iceberg. Think of very much what is powering AI. Is at the top level, we've got what's seen, what somebody's typing in there, and what AI is responding to. But AI's got all these signals now, much more data that it's using to serve up content. I will come later on to Office tier list, and you'll see the logic that we've been sort of going through with Spaces to Places, and where we've seen the real need to be surfacing good quality data on our market. So we're coming to that a little bit more. But what I wanted to say is AI has now, with all these LLMs, much more data to draw upon. With the different LLMs, they all have slightly different algorithms, but there's some key points here that they're picking on and drawing upon here that you'll see from Google business profiles. They're looking to see you exist, you're genuine. They're wanting to see that social proof and reviews as well. They're wanting to see data structure. Can they read it? They're wanting to see freshness. So they're looking for all this blend of different signals, which it can look quite confusing. And I know I totally get it. So it's like, how do we actually look at this and put them into categories and the stages? So we wanted to make this as practical as possible. Where we're finding, generally brands aren't being served up and visible is down to a few sort of key stages we always look at. So we first go right, what's going wrong, and then we'll show you how you can optimize and really transform to make sure that you're showing up with any searches with AI, also with the traditional Google search. The first thing is findability. We're finding a lot of the models now, the LLM models, cannot see quite a few flex office providers. This is because they haven't got a complete Google business profile, they're unverified. The other one that's still is quite interesting is a consistent naming. So on broker sites, businesses being named different ways. So it could be The Space, it could be Space, it could be Space House. If one business is named 3 different ways, an LLM is really finding it confusing. And so they don't understand what you're about or be able to find you in the first place. We're also finding then with locations, businesses aren't putting schema markups onto the websites. And then the other thing is even stopping at the beginning is not being crawlable. Sometimes websites are completely blocked to AI crawlers. And so people aren't initially being found at all. The next part where we feel it's sort of often is that understanding and AI knowing what you're about. We see so much of vague copy, I would say, where it's just like, we are a flexible workplace provider. That isn't enough for sort of LLM. They want to know where you're located, what the size, of the building is, the location. You need to give it clear, concise information. How much does it cost? Who are you for? Really diving into much more what you're about, because that's going to help you be served up. We're also seeing lots of internal images, but it doesn't show the context. And so AI is then not able to read those images and understand them. Or I mentioned about naming inconsistencies as well. So really thinking, go back to basics, make it really easy to understand for AI is a crucial one for us. And then the final part is the trust factor, to make sure you're being that preferred sort of choice coming up time and time again. You need to have those regular reviews, and we're finding quite often many flex office providers don't have recent reviews. They don't have any third parties sort of talking about them, endorsement, the coverage on the press is thin, or even on LinkedIn, sort of talking about what you do on LinkedIn is really poor. So hence, these are why quite a lot of the flex office brands are just invisible. And we know they're there, and we do want to make sure more people are seeing the great providers in this sector. So we're really keen to support you be seen. And so we wanted to, go through sort of components of an AI strategy to make sure you're being seen. So findability, we find, is the first step and really making sure that you can be seen. These are the technical foundations here. So make sure your website's crawlable. We also want to make sure no errors, like no 404s, and we want to make sure you've got those schema markups. So that's the first step where we would say is findability. The second part is always clear positioning and content. This is more that understanding. So quite quickly, an LLM can understand who you are and when to recommend. And then finally, the third part is then about online reputation, the PR, the citations and reviews to give that trust factor. So hopefully all of this sort of breaks it down into practical steps there. The final part, conscious we're just at 5 minutes, so we whiz through on this. There's some practical tips. First one is Google profile, then naming convention and address and telephone number need to be consistent in the same format to be seen. Schema markups, as I said, then the sort of concrete copy. Don't talk fluffy, say this is office near London Bridge, this is the price, be specific. Get reviews, make sure you've got reviews. And the other one that's exciting is third-party validation. So we'll come on to a bit more on the third-party evaluation. The next one is we've been doing this and seeing huge results for clients. So we work across the sector with providers from one location to like 25 locations. This is a provider we worked with, and very much we were looking at AEO and SEO both go hand in hand, but really showing how a transformation, this for us was getting the step one, those fundamentals correct in the first place was key and really showed the growth there. The next case study, just moving on to, was another provider. What was key was we had the structure in place, but making sure a website is converting. And that's, we want leads to come through and go through to sales. So I think these are ones where practically we're seeing the results, and we've got so many more data and tools that we can utilize. It's an exciting market. But I just wanted to just introduce you quickly to office tier lists, because I know we're just coming up to the end here. Do get in touch with us if you want to find out more on anything we've covered here. So office tier list is really about we're structuring, giving the market, and end users and the AI agents very much good quality information, the findability of the sector, the understanding of the sector, and the trust. That is why we have launched just earlier this year in March, office tier lists, so businesses can come and find you and celebrate the diversity in the sector. So office tier list fits because AI is looking for verified listings, independent reviews, and it's looking for the AEO sort of infrastructure and the copy being written in a certain style. So really conscious that I haven't in some ways explained what SEO and AEO is. So it's more just the transformation there from search engine optimization and to much more sort of the now agentic engine optimization as well. If you want to get involved with Office Tier List, it's totally free. You can get a free listing, or we can have the enhanced verified listing with much more data and quality information there. So hopefully it gives you the perspective of why we're doing it and why we see the importance of Office Tier List. Lister and the team would be more than delighted to help you set up your free listings. So do get in touch and we can go for a bit more. I know we're whizzing through at rapid speed at the moment. Without further ado, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. We're the data behind decisions and the marketing behind growth. We want to really keep in touch with you. And if you want to find out more, please book a call with us. Claire's just putting a call to action at the bottom. I do want to say thank you so much for joining us, and also thanks to all the team here as well, not just myself and Hilary, but behind the scenes. There's three main ways that we can really see we can support you is with, first of all, Hilary with location support and really that strategy side. Then very much Claire is working hugely as a fractional marketing there, but we're really specializing now much more the AEO and the SEO side. And then with Lister, the big part now is Office Tier Lists. We're getting listed and verified. So I think we're nearly at time. I don't know if a few people have just been messaging privately, but thank you. We've had over 40 people attend today, and Hillary's just going to go back to the poll.
Yeah, just say thank you so much for completing the poll. So 55% of you said that life is tougher than planned, 32% steady as expected. So we want to be there to support you through the rest of your 6 months of this year. But thank you so much for your time, for listening, and it's great to share your mornings with you.